Good day. Today we're going to deal with lesson 7, regulating and assessing developments. Right. The developments that have the potential for environmental impact. How do we regulate and assess those developments to ensure that there is no environmental damage, or wherein there is inevitable environmental damage, how do we minimize it? We'll speak on environmental impact assessments. So in this chapter, we're going to look at the background of EAIs, the legal framework behind it. We're going to look at the type of projects and the common impact of such project, as well as the EIA review fees, what goes on there, the process itself, the environmental management plans that would be part of the reporting. And we're looking at the implementation and monitoring of such environmental impact assessments. Now you may be asking yourself, why is process or EIAs so relevant? Why are we using these mechanisms to ensure environmental impact assessments? Well, this is the reason why. The potential environmental damage and the irreversible impact of most of the projects that happen prompts for environmental impact assessment, the need for environmental impact assessments. We see these pictures, they aptly represent why EAIs are so important. Now, in the international environmental law, where do we see the presence of EAIs? We see the ESPO Convention, wherein it says that EAIs are a national procedure for evaluation of the likely impact of a proposed activities on the environment, and then says that it is a process which produces a written statement to be used to guide decision making with several related functions. It says that, and then we have FAGO, it says the administrative or regulatory process by which environmental impact of projects is determined. Right. So it's very established where the EIs part of it comes from, and then as we try to assess the brief history of where they came from, it arose out of the pollution and unnecessary degradation of the natural resources caused by rapid population industrialization. We see this principle 17, the need for it, and as we stated prior in our previous lessons, that it is based on the precautionary principle. In the event of potential environmental harm, we look on this mechanism to ensure that it does not happen, or at least it minimizes it. Right, and the US was the first country to look into that. Now, our national policy on EAIs stems from Section 97 of EMA, which says that specific requirements, it states that EAIs are a requirement for specific types of projects, Schedule 1 projects. The clause specifies that EAIs are a requirement and should be carried out before such projects are implemented. Failure to adhere to this provision attracts the risk of criminal action being taken against the perpetrator. As part of EAI, the prospective applicant must state clearly how they will propose to mitigate and manage the impact of their project, the impact and how it will impact the environment. Now, in terms of Section 97, it is complemented by Statutory Instrument 7 of 2007, which is EAI and Ecosystems Regulations, which lays out other requirements for proponents who wish to apply for the EAI certificate. Now, what are these first schedule projects which require EAIs? Well, these include dams, man-made lakes, drainage, irrigation, forestry, housing developments, industry, water supply, waste treatment. Just look at the schedule yourself. So these are the types of projects that require EAIs. And what are the common impacts of these type of projects? We have disturbance of both human and wildlife, competition with local cultures, traditions, and lifestyles. We have health problems. Yeah, because we are looking at the right to health and self environment, it impacts our health because we want to ensure that we have a safe and healthy environment for our well being, just like we're talking about when we're analyzing section 73 of the Constitution. Now, besides health problems, we have social and cultural conflicts affecting the community stability, secondary population growth, displacement of local communities, increased demands on services and facilities in local communities. All these are the common impacts on the environment due to the previously mentioned industries or projects. Now, you may be asking yourself, what are the EAI process? What is the process to in the evaluation and monitoring of such projects? Now, you may be asking yourself the process. Well, firstly, there's a developed proposal by proponent, and that proposal uh, is developed when you are part of the prescribed activities that we talked about, the EIA proposal prospectus, right? And then they check whether it is an activity that is exempted or not. If it is not exempted, then you now prepare an EAI. Now, EAI, while you are preparing the environmental impact assessment, what do you do? There is a process of scoping on the environmental impact, and we are looking at you doing public participations and analyzing the environmental impact. And then when you are done with all of that, you report that environmental impact assessment, and in that report you include a management plan, right? And then the EIA is then reviewed by the ministry and referral agencies, and if they accept that EIA, they might accept it on certain terms and conditions, right? But it will be accepted, and then there will be monitoring and auditing of your project all throughout to ensure the environmental damage is minimized, right? So this is the brief summation of the process, the whole process. We have the screening of the EIA prospectus, we have the scoping, investigation and reporting, the review process of the EIA, as well as the environmental management plan, the decision, and the continued monitoring and implementation of that project. Now, the screening process, we're looking at the proponent develops project proposal, submits the proposal to the permitting authority, and then the authority decides whether the activity is prescribed or not. If it is a prescribed activity, proponent must develop the EIA prospectus. And if it is not prescribed, to seek project approval. Now, the screening process, as we continue on, the EIA prospectus development, the person submits the prospectus to the permitting authority, and the permitting authority decides whether this activity, this project is exempted from submission of EIAs. If it is not exempted, then the proponent must prepare a full EAI, right? And if it is exempted, then you may proceed to implement the project, or of course you may be given terms of condition in the approval of such a project. This whole process may take up to 20 days. And then we give an example of the prospectus review by the authorities. Just look at it, and then now during the scoping process, identify the key environmental issues that should be addressed in the EII. How do you then identify such key issues? It is through public consultations with the key stakeholders. This step provides the first opportunities for members of the public to learn about a proposed project, and here we're looking at the terms of reference for the project is formulated in trying to establish the key environmental issues. There's a baseline study, public participation. Public participation is the involvement of all parties who may potentially have an interest in the development of project and be affected by it. It entails a wide range of activities that can range from providing information through consultation to direct involvement of the public in aspects of the decision-making process. Right. Now these are some pictures showing people doing public participation to ensure that the interested stakeholders also have a say in the decision-making process. What is the objective of public participation? Increased confidence in the proponent, reviewers, or decision makers, providing better transparency and accountability to decision making, creating a sense of ownership of the proposal in the minds of the stakeholders, reducing conflicts through early identification of contentious issues and working through these issues to find acceptable solutions. Now, maybe ask yourself, who are these stakeholders, the interested stakeholders? Well, besides the proponent itself, the government agencies, the local people affected by the proposals are part of it, local councils and even NGOs. And then we have also community and business leaders, among others. Now, in terms of community leaders, we're looking at traditional leaders, chiefs, councils, headmen. We're looking at the governors, district administrator, political leaders of the area that we are talking about. Now, in terms of public participation, there are types of public consultations. We have the informative one, which is a one-way flow of information from the proponent to the public. And then we have the consultative one, which is a two-way flow of information between the proponent and the public, right? We are hearing the say of the public as well as what the proponent's view is in that regard. And we look at participatory public consultations. The proponent and the public are involved in shared analysis and agenda setting and decision making through reaching a consensus on the main elements involved. And then we have negotiations, which is face-to-face discussions. Proponents should be present to answer sensitive issues, right? As we continue on, so this is just a summation on the types or levels of participation for each EIA step, right? So we are looking at the screening process. This is when we just inform and consult, but during the scoping process now, not only consult, but we involve the public and we collaborate with the public to ensure that there is less environmental harm, or not only environmental, socioeconomic impacts are reduced. And then during the investigation and reporting part of it, the same process also applies: consulting and involvement of the public and collaborations. And then the review process, we're looking at consulting and involving the public as well. But in terms of the decision-making process, the public is merely informed about the decisions. In some cases, the FPCI is FPIC is involved. It is empowered also in the decision-making process. In terms of monitoring, the public is also consulted and involved, and they collaborate in the monitoring of the project itself. Now, the potential constraints to public public consultations. We have concerns of poverty, concerns of government issues, political interference, rural settings, accessibility and communication, infrastructure, cultural issues. We have communication issues, language issues, illiteracy issues, lack of cooperation for communities due to feedback oversights by previous developers, stakeholders failing to differentiate the consultant from the proponent. You see, we and then conflicts may also arise. Also, if the public consultations are not done properly, and the conflicts usually involve disagreement on the design of the process, stakeholders believing they have inadequate opportunities to get involved, and disputes over access to all the relevant information needed for better consultations, right? And then as we continue on, the EIA process, project implementation, what are we looking at? Well, these are baseline studies on the socio-economic impact. We are looking at ecological, water quality, air quality, archaeological, geological, hydrogeological issues to see, to ensure that the project implementation or environmental impact assessment project implementation, right? This will be what they'll be looking at during the implementation stage. It is important for us also to be aware that the environment management plan is also accompanied with the EIA reporting, right? So what is within that plan? It describes the management systems, monitoring and auditing arrangement required to ensure proper implementation of agreed mitigation measures and the verification of predicted environmental impact, right? So we want to manage the environmental impact, and there should be a plan to manage that impact, and part of the EIA report should include that environmental management plan. Now, there is no standard format for EMPs. The content of EMPs, however, include overview of the proposed activity and local content, proposed project and associated construction or operational activities, the affected biophysical, economic and social environment, local environment management, legal and planning context relevant to the EMP. Now, in the preparation process, there is need for a summary of impact associated with the proposed activity. You summarize the predicted negative and positive impact associated with the proposed activity, especially those presenting impact of medium to to high significance. So, the institutional arrangement and roles of the environmental management plan, we're just looking at you'll be showing the responsibilities for management action contained in environmental management plan, clarifying the arrangement for the coordination, among others, the role players involved in implementation, right? So EMPs must specify responsibilities for the range of actions specified in the EMPs. So this is an example of an EMP, what they'll be looking at. We're looking at the impact, the positive, and whether that impact is positive or negative, the source of the impact, how to mitigate that impact, and the responsibility, who will be responsible for that impact, monitoring agent. So This is environmental impact assessment. These are the regulating and implementation part of it. We are looking at the screening process, the scoping, investigations and reporting, reviews and decision-making process, public consultations that are done, the monitoring of EIA related projects, right, to ensure continued environmental protection. This is quite a commendable process if you look at it, the whole thing as a whole. It is quite commendable to try and protect the environment from the projects that are done by humanity to ensure their continued existence. So see you in our next class.